Ryle Kestano is the co-founder of Kora, a dating and relationship app, Art International, an authentic relating training company, the Realness Project, which is authentic relating programs for prison inmates, and Pink Mammoth, a creative arts collective. He is the author of Authentic Relating, a guide to rich, meaningful, nourishing relationships, and is at the forefront of the authentic relating movement worldwide. Welcome to Loving Without Boundaries, where we hear inspiring stories, share actionable advice, and talk about the challenges and the joys of ethical non-monogamy and polyamory. I'm your host, Kitty Chambliss. Coming up, my conversation with Ryle Kestano. Welcome back to Loving Without Boundaries, where I am really excited to have what I think is going to be a really beautiful and interesting conversation with Ryle Kestano, who I had the pleasure of meeting earlier this year, back in January of 2025, when I attended my first Interfusion Festival just for one day. And I got to attend two of Ryle's workshops, including the very first one that I walked into. So great to have you here. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to talk to me today.
Thanks, Kitty. Happy to be here.
Excited. Awesome. So I'd love it if you could share a little bit about yourself in your own words for our listeners so they can get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, sure. Well, mostly in the context of this conversation, I've been a leader in the world of authentic relating, the training, teaching of it, and the development of the community around it for about 15 years. And I first came into it myself as just a regular person struggling in relationship and not understanding why, not sure of myself and the background that it was contributing to my experience in relationship, and then things starting to break down there in my marriage. And so that was the catalyst for me to start really venturing out and exploring what possible exposure to relational intelligence and development I could find. And so I surveyed and scoured, the landscape of, workshops, retreats, teachers, modalities. And in the midst of that came across this practice of authentic relating, and it immediately spoke to me and resonated for me in a really profound and powerful way, specifically in the experience of being completely and fully welcomed in all of me, all of my parts, not only welcomed by others, but worthy of their curiosity and attention. And that made it possible for me to bring forward and reveal and share the parts of myself that had actually really subconsciously suppressed and shamed and hidden and put behind guards, sort of in the story of like, if I show these parts, nobody will ever want to stay with me or be in relationship or connection with me. And so that environment made it possible to identify, feel, and bring those parts forward and still be welcomed and worthy of connection. And that was a profoundly healing moment. And so from then on, I was like, I need to understand and study and bring into my life this practice as much as possible. And then over time, quite quickly, it was like, okay, now that I'm really seeing the massive transformational and healing benefits of this practice in my life, how can I bring this to others? Because it was still very small and confined to just very small communities around the country and world. So that was the seed for me to start my company, Art International, Authentic Relating Training International, back in 2017. And then I spent the next many years growing it and bringing workshops, designing and bringing workshops and authentic relating, both in person to a global audience around the world. And then we developed a whole online sort of platform of offerings of that training as well. And then stepped back from that work about 3 years ago with that company and moved into coaching and really wanted to work with people in a more sort of one-on-one and one-on-couple container. So I've been doing couples coaching and relationship coaching for the last few years. I published my book 3 years ago called Authentic Relating: Guide to Rich, Meaningful, Nourishing Relationships.
Mm.
And then my latest project in the last 6 months or so is, along with an amazing team, is designing, building, and putting out a dating and relationship app that's centered around authentic relating best practices.
Wow, that's quite a quite a resume. That's amazing. I so many questions, and I'm excited for the conversation. Maybe I'll start with uh, when you first were reaching out. Like, what were some of the biggest? What, I guess it was 15 years ago, before you found the authentic relating movement. Where and training, what was going on in your life? Like, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges and struggles that you were having at that time, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I would say that I had pretty poor and dysfunctional models of healthy relationship growing up. Primarily my parents
Hmm.
were in a dysfunctional relationship themselves. And I just had no reference point for what a trustable, honest, vulnerable, safe relationship was. And so that's what I grew up in. It's very unstable and unsafe. And I was not being tracked and protected. And so all of
Mm.
that became internalized, as it does for many people. And then it
Hmm.
shaped how I then showed up in my adult relationships. And one way that occurred that I know is pretty widespread for men is a kind of what I would call a mother wound, where I did not have consistent, available, present nurturing from my mother figure. And so then that became this sort of void inside that I then projected onto female partners as an adult in trying to manipulate and get them to be the missing mother figure, which was my large part in undermining and sabotaging a healthy relationship with adult partners. And so that just created more breakdown and mistrust and compartmentalization of the different parts of me. And I didn't know any of this. This is all occurring completely
Hmm.
subconsciously. And then just coming out sideways. And so that was really the first step, was kind of reckoning with how impenetrable my inner world actually was to me.
Mm.
And that was the first step, was looking for avenues and environments and guides and mentors who could help me start to illuminate the nature of my inner world and start to trace back some of these behaviors, reactions, beliefs to their source. And, it was necessary work, but it was also very, very challenging and required a lot of courage and
Mm.
patience. To the extent that I've helped and been with people who are at various points in that journey for themselves, I really honor anyone, who takes that journey into
Mhm.
the darkness and depths of their inner world. But of course, I think it's essential to take that journey to be able to show up here as adults and not continue to perpetuate the echoes of,
Mm.
a wounded and traumatized childhood.
Wow, that was profound and deep, and I want to honor you for having gone through that journey of going into the dark forest, similar to what you were talking about. I 100% agree. It does take a lot of courage and determination to be able to do that. So, thank you for having the courage to go on that journey and be able to talk about it so vulnerably and honestly here, because I'm sure everything that you're sharing is so relatable, as well as inspiring for a lot of our listeners. I'd love to ask another question about that, because I think it's really powerful, that you were when you were talking about that mother wound. And I'm also somebody who grew up in a somewhat dysfunctional and toxic environment and didn't have great role models, which partly led me to do the work that I'm doing now, which in some ways is similar, at the very least, in alignment with what you're doing. Because a lot of times, I'm sure you've heard, sometimes we're teaching exactly what we need to learn, right? Um, so when you talked about the mother wound, Can you explain maybe a little bit more how that might show up, like how we might uh, show up and start to sabotage our connections? Or you mentioned kind of projecting it onto our partners. Is there any way that that would typically manifest itself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big follower and student of Carl Jung's work,
Hmm.
the Swiss psychologist, who I think was one of the great pioneers and innovators that underpins a lot of really healing psychological work. And he was the one who sort of articulated the nature of projection. And essentially, it's making another person and a person in the external world a mirror or reflection or embodiment of an aspect of one's own self that is disowned or disconnected or suppressed or displaced into the psychic shadow. And so, yeah, in my case, and I know in many other people's cases, to the extent that I did not get a fulfilling and necessary channel of nurturing from my actual mother figure, then that became projected onto adult partners as an externalization of that which I actually need to cultivate within myself. I actually need to cultivate a quality of grounded, nurturing, conscious inner feminine within myself that
Mm-hmm.
I can turn to and access and be resourced by in moments of needing nurturing within myself, soothing, holding, caring, loving. I can turn to my own inner self rather than making somebody else responsible for those things. And that other person is a human herself. She didn't sign on to be my unconditionally loving mother when we stepped into relationship together, right?
Hmm.
She signed on to be a partner. And as a
Hmm.
partner, there is room there to be contributing to the reparenting and healing of some of these childhood wounds. But it's not their responsibility to take on that role, um, in replacement of the work that needs to be done to cultivate that within oneself.
Hmm. Yeah, that was a beautiful explanation. Thank you. And again, thank you for your vulnerability and openness in sharing that. I think a lot of people can relate to that, myself included. So I'd love to understand a little bit more about authentic relating. And I didn't realize that it was a movement. So I'd love to understand, like, when did the movement start, and how would you maybe explain some of the basic tenets of authentic relating?
I'd say it began very organically. There's not really a single point of origin. It is an outgrowth of various schools of psychology. I already mentioned Carl Jung, some of his work, as well as Carl Rogers, also one of the greatest psychologists of the last 100 years, and he developed what is called client-centric therapy, which is really all about being fully with the therapy patient and client to reflect to them their own experience such that they could arrive at their own insights and clarity, and pathway to healing within themselves instead of learning it externally. And various other sources of contribution over the years.
Mhm.
But essentially, authentic relating is a practice that holds a bunch of skills and tools that are all designed to create better, more intimate, more enriching and enlivening relationships with everybody in our lives, not just romantic partners, but family members, friends, colleagues. And it also has as much implications for even single conversations that we might have, even with a
Mm.
stranger. It really recognizes that humans are wired for connection,
Mhm.
and that one of the central sources of nourishment in our lives is intimate connection with other human beings. Ideally, that's the very first imprint we have as humans coming into this world is an intimate connection with
Mhm.
our mothers, even though I know that's not always the case. And so, um, authentic relating tries to restore the constituent skills, tools, practices that can provide for us a really rich and nourishing access to intimate connection with other human beings.
Hmm. Wow, that's so beautiful, and I love the way you express that as well. And it sounds to me like you completely changed careers. Is that right? Like once you discovered this and you had your own internal transformation, there was a part of you that just thought, "Wow, this was so impactful for me. I want to be able to give this to the world." And you just went all in. Is that accurate? Like you shifted careers from wherever you were doing before?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd been, sort of serial entrepreneur
Mm,
and, had developed some knowledge and skill sets for starting and building successful companies. So I had
hmm.
that in the background. I'd gone to business school and I was actually at the time running my most recent company that was in a totally different industry.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, when I discovered authentic relating and really actually did want to build a vehicle to bring that work and exposure and training to a broader audience, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I totally shifted out of the work I was doing, sold my company to my partners, and then went all in on authentic relating, and then yeah, started art with a partner, and then we built that out, yeah, to reach a global audience.
That's amazing. What would you say? And how long have you been doing workshops around the country?
We started art in 2017, so
Hmm.
it's been 8 years. And I, yeah, just actually sold art to a new generation of leaders here just recently. So it's
Oh.
still thriving. Yeah, offering workshops all the time, everywhere around the
Hmm.
world and online.
Hmm. That's I loved the workshops that I went to. So it was definitely a different flavor, a different cadence to those workshops that definitely appealed to me. And the work that I do, helping people be in healthy relationships, no matter what they look like, whether they're monogamous or consensually non-monogamous or polyamorous. So it definitely aligned. So that's one question I have for you that we started to talk about before the interview, which is if you would, whatever you feel is appropriate to share in terms of your relationship background with monogamy or non-monogamy and how that relates to this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm probably mostly wired for a monogamous relationship. And then I would say for me personally, one of the symptoms of what became an increasingly sort of dysfunctional, disintegrated marriage was my wife at the time wanting to have an open marriage. And for her, that was a way of trying to get her own needs met that weren't being met in the marriage by going outside without actually having to or even being able to lean in and really work on what was actually happening deep down between us. And I just don't think that we actually had the intelligence or ability to access some of those deeper layers. So it
Mhm,
manifested as, her wanting to open up the marriage and try to get her own needs met in that way. So I think right off the bat, for us specifically, there was already a lot of omitting of what was really happening, misdirection, and some degree of dishonesty that sort of laid the groundwork for how we entered into that space. And it just, yeah, it completely destroyed me, honestly.
oh, man. Mhm,
I just did not, I was not able to handle that at all. And so I was split between the terror of my partner and the projected image of my mother figure abandoning me.
mhm,
Uh, and so I very meekly just went along with it, while everything inside of me was just screaming, no, this is like so unsafe. And so I
mhm,
was caught in myself in this completely split, irreconcilable way of being and living and moving through that relationship.
mhm,
And then, yeah, it took years actually before I was able to, do a bunch of work and come into contact with what was actually true for me. And I tried to try to invite us into a space in which we could actually face and reckon with what was happening between us. But by then, already a lot of damage had occurred. And so the only available recourse for me was to leave the partnership entirely and shift into a co-parenting type of role.
Okay.
So,
and it was after that you found the authentic relating?
It was towards the end of that
Okay.
process. Yeah. Authentic relating really helped me actually get more in touch with my own authentic experience and truth and values. And, I've said many times since then, a lot of our suffering comes from living our actual lives out of alignment with our true core values and needs and desires that live within us. And so I would say the first step is to identify what is true for me. What are my actual true values that I hold dear at the core of me? And then how is it that I'm living my life out of alignment or in tension with what is actually true for me, no matter what that might be? I mean, it could be completely reversed. A lot of people's truth is to live a non-monogamous life, and they're shoehorning and constraining themselves into a context of relationship that is out of alignment with what's actually true for them. So it's like you can approach it from every direction, but the first step is to actually really own and be honest with yourself about what's actually true for you. And then look at how you're living your life. Is it an expression of that inner truth, or is it a denial of it? And then the often hard work comes in now bringing your life to be an authentic expression of what's actually true for you inside.
Beautifully said. Love that. So before we go on to talk about some of the other amazing things that you're doing, what would you say are some of the most rewarding things specifically about the authentic relating work that you've done, or maybe some of the, if you want to share even a story of like some of the biggest positive impacts that work has had for you or your clients?
Yeah. Well, Carl Jung said that, the path of life, the path of the awakened and conscious life is a path that leads to wholeness. Wholeness within oneself, wholeness in relationship, wholeness in community, wholeness in the world. And I love that lens to see the nature of myself, my relationships, my community, and the world. And I think a lot of suffering and pain and breakdown that occur at every level of those occurs because we are disintegrated and we are split and we are not whole. I mean, you can just see it in the country, right? There's the split that's occurring, I think, is one that reflects a moving away from the path towards wholeness, which, by the way, is not like perfect agreement ever, right? But it's integrating every aspect of the system, no matter what it might be, right? So I think that's, for me, what authentic relating has really brought to my life is a welcoming and integrating and honoring of every part of myself, right? The little boy that's still, hurt and scared from childhood, the one who longs for and yearns for and dreams about things that I want in my life, the adult in me, the master and, teacher in me, the one who has stories and self-limiting beliefs. All of these parts of me are a part of me. And the work is to welcome them, to give them space, to develop relationships with all these parts. And for me, that's the experience of wholeness, which is peace. It leads to an experience of peace in myself and peace in me and the world. And peace doesn't mean that it's easy or there's never, flare-ups or things that I have to deal with or challenges or difficulties, but there's just this sense of inner groundedness and feeling at home within myself and in the world that this work has brought me. And that's exactly when you then expand that into the context of relationship. I think the best relationships have a kind of grounded peace within them. And when conflict or tension or something occurs, you still can navigate through it in a way of peaceful collaboration and care and open-heartedness that continue to build more resilience and safety and trust within the relationship. And then you can extend that to a family system, and then and a group and a community and on from there.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say overall it's provided me with a sense of feeling at home in myself and myself in the world, and then valuing that experience in my relationships.
Mhm. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all that. Really, I feel it in my heart, just everything that you shared there. And so I'd love to ask more. I actually, a little bit about me. I've been with my husband for 22 plus years, married for 19 plus, and I've identified as polyamorous for maybe about the last 15 years or so. And my other relationship I was in was a gentleman that lived with us for over 8 years, and we were together almost 10. And that relationship, we decided to separate for various reasons this past spring. And I went in on my own conscious uncoupling and healing journey that I've been going through this year, and bringing that up to speed with, I finally got on some dating apps starting August. So I've only been out there in the dating world from a polyamorous lens since August, and hadn't been on dating apps for about a decade. So I'm really curious. I'm only on one right now. I'm on Hinge at the moment. So I'm really, really curious about your dating and relationship app, Kora. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
I'd love to understand more about that. Like, what was the inspiration to create it? How is it different than other dating apps?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, the work I've been involved with for this past many years is centered around authentic human connection and really holding that as sacred. Like this is
Mhm.
not a commodity. This is not a thing that should be superficialized. This is the core of what it is to be human, is the sacredness of our connection with other humans. And I think that's been the case for eons. And I don't think that the current paradigm of modern dating and dating apps really actually does recognize the sacredness of human connection. And so we're trying to restore that and bring that back into center frame, and really honor the unique, special, vital, essential nature of what it is to connect with another human being. And so, more technically or specifically, I think, you have this, what we would call swiping culture, right? Which is centered around these single static photos and the immediate reflexive reaction that we have to those when we're on these modern dating apps. And we're dismissing, the entire complexity and depth and history and nuance that is actually a human being, and reducing them to a single fraction of a second reflexive judgment. And then
Mm,
that extends into, even to the extent that we get to a first date, we then step into that date, having to necessarily compress all of these complexities, subtleties, dimensions, facets of a human being into assessing them within an hour or two as to whether there's somebody worthy of, continuing in connection or not, let alone assessing them for life partnership, which is just insane. There's no way at all you can ever actually remotely accurately assess somebody for such a momentous decision as choosing who you're going to partner with in the space of an hour or two. It's just absolutely insane. And that's
mm,
what this modern dating culture is forcing us to step into and move towards. And it completely not only robs us of the opportunity to really actually get to know what it's like to connect with somebody meaningfully and over time, but it goes entirely against our actual instincts and nature and wiring to do that. So that's the current problem, I would say, with what's happening. And as we're seeing, there's just rampant increasing rates of loneliness and isolation, anxiety, depression, all these afflictions that I think all actually stem from a collective dysfunction in how we connect with each other.
mhm,
That's being driven by technology and social media and, in the dating world by dating apps. So that's what we're trying to address. And so, we're wanting to restore what is it actually to get to know somebody really deeply. And so the first step of Kora, our dating and relationship app, is to get to know each user very, very deeply, richly, and wholly. So we have a really rigorous onboarding process that we've designed to really build a profile that is massively more multidimensional and real and accurate and comprehensive than anything else out there right now.
Hmm.
And then we're doing our best to very thoughtfully leverage the state of technology with AI to complement how we match people. So my partner in this project is one of the top matchmakers in the country. Her name's Sophie Love. And so she has many years to draw on in intuitively matching people for compatibility that lasts like into relationship. That's another problem with current dating and culture and dating apps is there's this massive emphasis on trying to like force compatibility at the dating stage without any consideration with supporting people and guiding people into relationship. It's like dating apps end as soon as you meet somebody, but then what?
Hmm.
Where do we go from there? And
Hmm.
so the way that we look at compatibility is bringing people who are compatible not just at the instant moment of meeting, but who are going to be compatible for the rest of their lives, right? Over time. So we're looking at deep, subconscious patterns, people's values, their core desires, needs, preferences, boundaries, and
Hmm.
looking at all of that, analyzing all of that to really produce the highest quality match as possible. And then supporting people from the moment they meet each other. We're not just, because you can take two people who are very compatible on paper, and then you send them out on a date on their own, and they just have no idea still how to actually leverage the theoretical compatibility into an actual connective, intimate, enlivening conversation and connection. So we're guiding them through that whole process to actually leverage these high quality points of compatibility at the moment of first meeting into their first dates and then all the way through their entire relationship. And all the time we're building and evolving their user profile to reflect who they are, who they have been, who they are, who they're evolving into, so that we can continue supporting them directly and powerfully all the way through the entire trajectory of a relationship.
Wow, that's very impressive and exciting. I love hearing about that. So I'm curious, where are you at in the developmental stage? Is that available now to check out, Kora, or are you still in the process?
Yeah, so we're in the early stages of building it out
Hmm.
and fine tuning all of the different underlying pieces. So we've opened our alpha program to have people help us kind of test all of the various pieces.
Hmm.
We've got a few hundred people in that program now. We're right now focused on people in the Los Angeles area so that we can get people out on matches and dates and, hopefully on into relationship to really prove out and continue refining every step of the process. So, yeah, you can go, anyone listening can go to Kora.dating, check it out, see what we're up to, and then sign up for the alpha program if you happen to live in the Los Angeles area, or let a friend or somebody in that
Yeah,
area sign up.
that's really neat. And in the context of our listeners, how is it built out, or is it inclusive to folks who may be identifying as not monogamous and something else, or non-binary? How is that addressed, if at all, with your app?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that effective, conscious, skillful communication underpins all human connection and in every form. I mean, ultimately, we want to position this app not just for romantic partnership, but really to support users in every of their relationships. Like, you know, um, how do I talk to my mom? Like I'm really
Mm.
struggling in my relationship with her. Cool. Well, let's really look at that and explore that and coach you through that. So yeah, so it's we're right now the most sort of one of the more obvious on ramps into this is via dating, and
Hmm.
I think outshining the current crop and offerings of dating apps. So it's sort of an obvious entry point for us to develop first. And so that's what we're focused on. But yeah, anybody in any model of relationship can join, and we'll get as much, value out of it as anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's wonderful to hear. So before I take you into our lightning round, is there any question I didn't ask you that you would like to address, or any message that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I would just say, this is the very first chapter of my book. It's the first thing that I ever teach people at workshops. And so, one thing that I think is something to consider as an access point into more conscious and, richer, more enlivening, more intimate relationships and conversations is to slow down.
Mm.
And I say that partly because I think actually the pace of the world is speeding up ever faster, and it's having us try to keep up with it, but we are not at all wired for the speed and pace and acceleration of the world around us, right? Like we actually massively benefit and can access more healing, more nourishment from life itself, from relationships, from conversations, from even breathing by slowing everything down, just slowing down the pace of the movement of our lives, taking time to be in stillness and rest, to breathe, to feel, to notice our sensations, to pay attention to another, to make room for the nuances that actually enrich every conversation and interaction. So that's really the one thing I would like to convey is bringing in more slowness, more stillness,
Mm-hmm.
more rest into people's lives. And it's just incredible how much that will actually deepen and transform every conversation.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. So with that, I'll go ahead and take you into our lightning round. This is just a few questions to start to come to a conclusion here, and you can either underscore something you've already shared or add something new. So the first question is, what's maybe either the best advice you've ever received or the best thing that maybe you've done along your journey of living your most authentic life?
Well, in addition to what I just said, which is slow down,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I would say that the next best advice I would give is to notice, and slowing down leads to noticing, right? So
Mm.
it's like notice the world within and around you. There's so much that we're overlooking. Just notice things as simple as the quality of light coming through the window, the movement of leaves on a tree. Notice, the little micro expressions on the face of a loved one or a friend. If you have an animal, right, a pet, like notice how they move, how they look, how they feel. Yeah, bring more noticing back to, your experience of moving through life. It can be
Mm-hmm.
such a beautiful experience. Yeah, and it's just like mind blowing. And I think honestly, to the extent that anybody has any experience with psychedelics or, mind altering
Um,
substances, I think in large part, those are designed to actually have us slow down and notice so
mm-hmm.
much of that which we overlook and just glide by, as we're moving through life, like always looking ahead, right? It's like you're spending your whole life just looking ahead until it ends. But we're alive right now in this moment, and there's such a richness and beauty and so much to savor right here and now.
That was beautiful. I'm so glad I asked that question. That was great. How about for somebody who is maybe at a crossroads in their life of wanting to step into living, being in alignment with their values? What is a tip that you would give somebody who is at a crossroads like that in their life?
I would say get on your knees and ask for help. There's so much guidance, mentorship, eldership, wisdom that is in the world, that is out there, that is waiting for you to ask for help. All right. It's like people are stubborn in that way,
Hmm.
deny, or I don't need help. I'm too proud to ask for help.
Hmm.
Right. Like I got to figure it out myself. I look weak if I ask for help. Oh, whatever story is constraining them, I would
Hmm.
say just burn that up and just get on your knees and ask for
Hmm.
help. And when you do, like help comes. It's just amazing how like the world is poised, like ready, available, ready to respond, and to support us once we actually like surrender to it and turn to it. And for some people, it has to get really, really bad, and they have to watch a lot get actually destroyed before they will finally ask for help. I would say don't wait that long. Ask sooner, and we're all here, really ready to love, support, guide, mentor those that are ready to receive, help, transmission, wisdom, guidance.
Gorgeous. Beautiful. And I know we have your book, Authentic Relating. Is there any other book or even a movie or some other resource that you can recommend that really helped you on your journey that you'd like to share here?
Yeah. I always go to my favorite writer and author. His name's John Hollis, Hollis, James Hollis. And he's a modern scholar of Jungian depth psychology and has framed the profound wisdom that Jung himself innovated and presented in a modern context. So he's written a bunch of books that are aimed at men, at people in relationships, people in their later years of life. And I found his work to be so impactful and transformational. So James Hollis, any of his books.
That's awesome. And then lastly, for fun, is there a particular song or artist that really moves you or inspires you musically?
I don't know if this probably sounds cheesy, but the music of nature, honestly, just sitting outside on a bench somewhere in some natural environment and just listening, and it's not silent, right? There's so much music there of the sounds of nature, and I think we've been listening to that music the longest of any kind of music at all in the whole arc of humanity. And I think to tune into that music is to tune into the unbroken thread and lineage of what it is to be human from the dawn of time.
Beautiful, beautiful. Awesome. Well, I've deeply enjoyed this conversation with you. And I just, again, want to thank you for your time and attention that you've given not only myself, but our listeners of this podcast. How can people find you and your work and your book?
Yeah. So if anyone's interested in authentic relating training itself, they can go to my recent company, Art International. It's authenticrelating.co. Get all the information there. I love providing coaching and mentorship and guidance for people along this journey. So you can check me out at rylekestano.com. And then my new project, the dating relationship app, is at Kora.dating.
Awesome.
And then my book is on Amazon.
Wonderful, wonderful. And again, the book is Authentic Relating, A Guide to Rich, Meaningful, Nourishing Relationships. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. Really appreciated the conversation.
Yeah, most welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard, are struggling with some aspect of your relationships, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit to work with me as your relationship coach, here's what I invite you to do next. Head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. That's lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply, and book a call to speak with me. I'll get on the phone with you for about 45 minutes, and we'll get you crystal clear on 3 things. Number 1, exactly what's not working well in your relationships right now. Number 2, ideally where you'd like to be and what might be getting in the way. And number 3, the exact strategy to get you there, helping to close that gap. Remember, creating healthy, open relationships does not typically happen by itself. Many often need expert guidance to make it happen. We've helped clients all over the world to feel safe, happy, and secure in open relationships while not losing their mind or their cherished partners. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. I'm Kitty Chambliss, and let's talk soon.